there's a lot of great marketeers out there selling this same message. There's a lot of charlatans, Elliot. You're the real deal, right? I think that's very clear just in general with your content, the real deal.
Well, you're the first one to get through the whole class. So good job. What'd you think?
I thought it was comprehensive, and I think it really clarified some of the things that no one ever talks about, the bits in between the steps. Right. And some personal experiences that you've had either yourself or with your clients. That was really, really, really great.
That's what I wanted to focus the class on, some that will help them execute transactions, not just kind of know how to think about doing a deal or how to put together a Gantt chart on how to do a deal, but like, excuse my language, how to close the motherfucker. And so, I almost want to call the class how to close the motherfucker, but I'm not sure the market's ready for it yet. Maybe in a couple of months.
Absolutely.
So I saw your email. So it seems like you have had a lot of success. I look at your LinkedIn. Recently had some financial success with the company that you were a founder of that went public. You are from an island off the coast of France in the canal, and now you're in Boston, and you're thinking about putting your money to work. That was the summary, if I remember kind of correctly, what you wrote.
100%. I'm the Guernsey is the Cayman Islands of the UK. So it's an offshore location. I had a lot of benefits. It has no capital gains tax. So I was there for an extended period, but my partner is from Boston. So I've moved here, which is where I'm speaking to you from. And of course, to your point, I want to make this money. I've cashed out a little bit of equity. I'd like to go down the securities-based loan angle and put it to work, right? Which is why your course was so perfect, right? In terms of like next steps. I've got a ton of questions, but I don't know where we should start from.
Well, before we get into specific questions, maybe we should start from how would you define success? If we think about a month out, if we think about 6 months out, how do we think about success, both in outcomes that we may be able to affect but not guarantee or control, but then also things that we can not only affect but control. I would love to kind of set that up, and I'm taking notes on my side. I'll probably set up a shared Google folder so we can have a place to come back on this and make sure we're addressing those things.
For me, the ability to move away full time from my advisory gigs. So to have secured an asset in the quickest time possible that enables me to leave behind. There's a virtual working setup I have advising technology companies.
Yep.
I want 100% ownership, and maybe this is something that we could talk about. I'm not that excited about going down and securing investors. I think with the capital I have, I'd like to do it for my first asset purchase with my own capital. Maybe that's not the right route. Maybe that's naive, but I'm open to like it. But that's where my thought is with my own capital. And of course, a little bit of deal structuring. I love how you structure the things with seller notes, etc., with assets, etc., and the ability to secure a business that can help me use that as a platform to build more from. So cash flow is great, but the asset purchase somewhere down the line would be even better as well. I don't know for how long I would need to be an owner operator. I'm not that interested in purchasing a job, even if it is a lucrative one. But maybe in the immediate term, while I go for purchase number 2, number 3, I'm happy to get my hands into the operations of the business and maybe hire someone to run that for me. But that's why I think success for me is to be able to do this full time means it gives me the optionality to be an operator on this business, right? So that for me is success.
And then a lot of those were outcomes. So things that we can't necessarily control, but we can impact. If we thought about more internal stuff, like the things that Oz and Elliot can control, so probably more on the advisory side of this versus the outcome business acquisition side. Maybe this is more of a 101 on working with Oz in highly effective arrangements, which means how not to work with Oz, right? So let's talk a little bit about that, so I know not to step in any landmines, and also to make sure to speak to you in the ways and the processes that are most effective.
I'm a very open collaborator. I'm pretty accustomed to using technology as a way to communicate through multiple channels. So I don't know if you do emails or other things like Slack. I don't know, but I'm pretty, because of my job in tech, my communication style is very async. So it doesn't always have to be the kind of these types of touch points. We can move async. I'm very open. A lot of my work is still European time zone based. So given I'm still working, and this is more of a part-time search, this is the perfect time onwards. So 11:30 midday-ish Eastern time. All the way for the rest of the day is perfect for me. And this is where these are the kind of protected times that I'm going to dedicate or have been dedicating to getting a deal done, basically. So I'm waking up at like 4:30 a.m. at the moment. I've got
by the time I get up.
So you know what that means.
Nobody is bothering you.
It's so amazing. It's so amazing. I still need to get my ass into the gym more. I need to move more, but I'm working on that. So after 11:30 midday Eastern, I'm good. It's full time. Before that, it's going to be tough for me, I think.
Well,
but yes,
I would say that my kind of circadian rhythms, like 11:30 to probably 1:30 would be the best time if we were going to do a kind of real time meeting. Is great. Right now, Google Folders is how I manage most of my historical stuff. Frankly, I'm still thinking about what's the best way to manage 5 folks that'll be in this class plus one-on-one time, and then the folks that'll be in the other class. So maybe a bit of trial and error figuring stuff out. But like I like email. So like, typically what I would do is some combination of email or shared Google folder with, Google Docs that we can work in very synchronously. I may be dabbling with Notion, but I don't want to go there yet because I'm still figuring it out. But that's kind of on my agenda to get better with. And then I use Loom videos quite a bit too. So if email can handle it and kind of bullet point or number things, or Google Doc can, great. Sometimes, and I've been using this a lot, Loom videos, both I think for nuanced communication and frankly sometimes for like, hey, foot and ass, like, hey man, let's get this done this week. You know what I mean? Cheerleader kind of thing. Which frankly, with my highly kind of dedicated, smart client base, I've been amazed at how often just a slight challenge or a kick in the tail here and there have really pushed people substantially forward.
That's good to hear. Do you do Slack?
I don't do Slack.
Okay.
I don't like Slack. I will likely need to figure out something Slack once I get more folks into the class. So I'm cognizant that something like that is coming. I just, what have I used that operates like Slack that I like better? So I've used, I need to get more into the Kajabi cohort technology to see how that works. I've used ClickUp and what's the other one that I've used? Monday to manage things a bit better. So we'll see. I think the issue with Slack for me is, and I'm sure I could be much better with it, I find that it allows people to say stuff and bury it. And it can be difficult to keep track of the 5 things I said last week. If I didn't handle them in real time, if I don't like dedicate myself to potentially reading through 15 messages 3 or 4 times, distilling the action items. And so I frankly found that sometimes the people who have used Slack have almost used it as an excuse to not address every action item. That's a personal thing, but we're going to work through what works best at the intersection of me and you. That's also why I think Notion is kind of cool, because it allows for, I think, a bit more like flexibility around how you communicate, not just like Google Docs is really Microsoft Word and the Google Cloud, but Notion has some things you can do to be a bit more creative in how you structure things. And one of my vendors on the YouTube side, him and I are using it because you can sort of consistently move action items up to the top and connect other things. So as if you give me a couple weeks to kind of figure out the best communication for both you and I, and then you and kind of the folks that are in the class, I'd appreciate that grace. And frankly, you get the benefit of me sort of optimizing the best of what I've used over the past 20 some odd years for us, and the other folks that come after you that took a little bit longer to make a choice, we'll figure them out down the road.
Good stuff. I love Notion. I love Notion. Are you still using streak.com?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, took a note of that.
Yeah. 4 or 5 times over the past 15 years, I've gone to see if there's something better for me, and I haven't. And I use HubSpot as well, but HubSpot helps me. To me, that's more of a what have people done on my website? What kind of real-time kind of like social media, website, download, analytics can I pull on folks, and how do I kind of capture large volumes of data in kind of somewhat standardized ways? Whereas Streak is my action item list, my reminder function, my super quick way to keep notes, and really how I stay organized, which is why I think email is still so operationally efficient for me. It's really email plus Streak. If it was just one without the other, it wouldn't be as efficient.
Okay. Yeah, I liked your run through. I think it does everything that you want it to be a lightweight CRM, right?
That's right.
I'm copying your pipeline, how you describe the funnel in terms of the steps.
Yep.
I don't know why you would need a more complex CRM, to be honest,
And then here's the other thing. You're going to have to optimize your funnel. It'll probably be Elliot inspired, Oz delivered, right? And on a Tuesday, when something hits you like, oh, aha, the way I communicate, I need to add this step, take this step out, add this portion of the funnel. It's like 2 seconds, done, boom. No matter what it is, there's very little rigidity in Streak. And I found they're doing a great job over the years of adding functions and features in good in real time. Now, I know the owner. I don't get paid to publish stuff. And if he ever stopped delivering, I'd get rid of him. I love him. We can still hang out. But no, I like the software quite a bit.
And you've got a mad number of brokers on there too. That's a crazy number.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of what this class will be, I've been spending a lot of time the past week, and I honestly, since you signed up Friday, going back through touching stuff, and one of the things, a couple of the things that I think will be most influential based on feedback from what I've told other people, and also I think just mindset. As crazy as this sounds, I think, let me put it the way that like I can structurally say it. Structuring the analysis on any per deal basis further down the funnel. So you're not doing analysis on poor data because that's all you have, relative to reallocating that kind of faux positive analysis time to more volume. So one of the toughest things, and I have friends that like take months to listen to me, you should be sending 5 to 10 letters of intent a month. But I can't analyze this, but I can't think of this, but those are all relevant things. But if you think about the information that you get pre-LOI as plus or minus 30%, so a range of 60%, what are we actually doing? When valuations are kind of, in most of the size regions, 3 to 5 times, and largely probably a third of the deals are coming with pricing recommendations. So then you don't have to even worry about valuation, just what do you want to do relative to the suggested price? And then the other ones being, do you want to pay 3, 4, or 5 times? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And so when you get to volume, I think people think bigger volume makes you sloppy. And no, because this isn't like dating where you may only have like 4 slots a week. And so being sloppy just means you fill up 4 slots quicker with probably inferior situations. No. You actually have endless slots. An email takes 2 or 3 minutes to pop out, 2 or 3 minutes to read. What you're trying to get to is a statistically significant number of deals in a certain industry, area, size range. And what that does for you that nothing else did for me, all of the spreadsheets and scoring, although they were directionally correct, the best way for me to figure out which deals were great, mediocre, or bad was my body would tell me once I got a statistically significant number of them. Once I got to 10, and certainly once I got to 30, call it like tow truck companies. I'm not saying you like those businesses, but I did. Then all of a sudden, I knew what my top 10% deals were. I knew what the bottom 10% were. I knew if it wasn't a top quartile deal, I shouldn't be spending any more than 2 minutes on an email. I certainly shouldn't be reading a full confidential information memorandum. And it helped me bifurcate time without having to go to like, here's a spreadsheet, or no, just like, oh, this is a top 10% deal. And sometimes that was based on numbers, but some of it was like, this one has a general manager in it. This one's 45 minutes from my front door. This one, I had a top 10% conversation with the owner. So a bunch of things that become hard to stack up as you look at 30, 40 deals, but you feel it when you're like, well, I like this one better than those 3.
So 5 to 10 deals a month. That's what good looks like in order to get this.
Yes. To maximize your chances, I think you should be sending 5 to 10 letters of intent, which means you're looking at 30 plus deals a month. And in fact, my college buddy who was here, he expressed an interest in getting more into this. And I told him the exact same thing. Like,
okay,
I don't take people seriously until they've sent 3 letters of intent. I just told you straight up. It's on my website. If you download something, I ask how many letters of intent. And like the people who have sent less than 3, you're going to have to come back later. You're not real yet. You're probably 2 or 3 more times likely to quit than to move forward. Whereas And here's what's crazy. I talk to people who have 14 interns, private equity experience, rich uncles, dads, everything, right? And they ain't sent an LOI in 2 months.
What the hell are they doing then? Oh, are they overthinking it, overanalyzing numbers, which, to your point, are just directional, right? That was very powerful when you said that.
Overanalyzing numbers that are directional because that's all they have without thinking about the full process to success and backing into it, right? I mean, dating analogies people are shy away from. I'm done being inefficient because I want to be PC. It's like, look, how good of a mother is your partner going to be? Can you ask her on the first date and trust what she says or he says? No. So you can ask. You can get something. You can have 10 first dates. You can write down what those 10 jokers said. You can try to do some spreadsheet on how they sized up. And the third one said the coolest thing, probably because they're the best at lying or have been asked a question so many times because they've been on so many freaking first dates. You probably won't know for a month. So then being told an answer to a question versus being able to trust the answer that you've been told or have observed yourself is so different in these deals. Another great example is the false positive. This is a market leading company. Most of the sales are driven by referrals and word of mouth. Broker said that because they have no god awful idea on how this thing gets new business, right? But you write it down and, oh, this is the section of my CRM where the word of mouth, you know.
I've seen for growth, we need another sales rep. Then we'll double in. Like that's the.
Yeah. And it's like, man, I run a business. That's not what's holding me back. Or even if it would go with a lot of other things. And if a sales rep at $100,000 would make what a typical sales rep would have to make in terms of revenue to stay, which is probably at least 3 times that, right? If an owner could pay out $100K and get back $300K, what are we saying? They've never had $100,000?
Exactly right.
Now, there's a great counter argument that says they didn't choose to put their $100,000 into the business, deal with the new employee. I get all that, but then I think that's the next question we should be asking the seller, not the other superfluous crap people ask. So are you telling me you haven't had $100,000 in the past 4 years? And so now you start getting to the diligence part of what information would you need to believe that a salesperson is the thing holding this business back. And so, yeah, it's like, so you hear that in the confidential information memorandum because the buyer's been coached. You hear that on the seller call. You put together a letter of intent. Your valuation is based on that. A month into diligence, we see that they fired 4 salespeople. The one that they still have on the books is really an account manager managing the relationships the seller has. You're probably kicking the seller out. So your salesperson is the seller. They're doing all of the sales. And really it's the founder-led nature of the business that's holding it back, which is like a system-wide, business-wide issue, not a go hire a salesperson issue. So now you spent time thinking about this false piece of data that you couldn't confirm, that now you have to put the new piece of data in your head. And now you've got 2 pieces of data in the same slot. You know what I mean? Which I found as I've gotten older and as I've looked at more deals, I tend to not listen to things I can't prove. I kind of just turn my ear off. At worst, I'll say seller or broker mention referral, word of mouth, and then put down what data would I need to believe that. In one of the videos in the class, I talked about that. So then it's like, okay, somebody should have a referral sheet. Someone should have, okay, well, word of mouth. Look, I know where my last 10 customers heard of me. If somebody asked me, I could show. Somebody else in my position should be able to show that information, even if it's directional or anecdotal. So we kind of hammered through almost half hour, but when we started this, you said you had some questions. I want to make sure I get to your question. Do you want to transition into that?
That'd be great, Elliot. This is great. I'm taking a ton of notes. I'm doing a broker search.
Okay.
Simply because on a part-time basis, I just think a broker search makes most sense for me. I think in time, I would love to hire an intern or a few of them and do the outbound thing.
Sure.
My aim is to transition in the shortest amount of time possible, Elliot. So with that said, I'm ready. I've done a short list of companies via the normal channels, the McDonald's, as you said, biz, buy, sell. I'm looking around the state of Massachusetts, but also like the adjacent states.
Okay.
Northeast, right? I went to Harvard.
I know like Boston. I hate to admit that outside of Boston, I'm not very good. And even inside of it, I'm okay. But let me know what you're thinking in terms of how far is your circle?
Like a 2-hour radius from Boston. So that includes Rhode Island, New England, basically. My question, I'm ready to send a message to the brokers for the companies that I'm in. Do I need to incorporate myself and buy a domain name, or am I fine as an individual to initiate these conversations? What will the broker take me seriously if I don't set up an LLC, for example?
I think your longer term goal should not necessarily be for an LLC, because I think until you are about to acquire an asset, you don't need an LLC. An LLC to me is for when you need protection against money that runs through an entity from things that may happen in normal course of business that may get you sued to separate your personal assets from your business assets. I think that you may want to get a domain and put an email on the domain, and you can get that probably done in a half hour to hour and a half, depending on what service and how.
Easy.
But I think that your Gmail won't work, right? So like, here's how I think about it. If you're going to send the messages, unless the email thing is going to take an hour and that's it, send the messages, right? I think something you have to recognize, here's how I see you as a different buyer than someone else. And here's what I would say to brokers. Hey, I'm interested in this deal. Well, these are just listings you found on the McDonald's. So you've been on Biz Buy Sell, you found some listings, you want to reach out to the brokers. Have you submitted the online information to receive information on those deals?
No, not yet.
Well, then you got to do both. You got to do the online submission, because that might be hooked up to some automated thing the broker has. And then you want to follow up by email. And if you're really good, do that, put it in your CRM with a reminder. What you want to say is probably something to the effect of, I'm not 28. I'm not putting down 5% and asking Big Brother SBA to do the rest. I'm actually doing this all with my money that's sitting in a bank that you can touch. I'm interested in this deal and moving efficiently. How can I move quickly to a letter of intent or to a no?
What was the last bit?
How can I move efficiently towards a letter of intent or to a no on this deal, so I can look at your next greatest opportunity?
Okay, I love that.
I changed it a little bit, but it's here's all the ways we can win together and why I'm more likely to win in 2 sentences without me feeling like, Oz, you've done an amazing set of things, right? And you might even have like a Oz and then PS, here's a little about me. But at the beginning, I'm sitting on $1.5 million like you sent me, and you're not some 28-year-old kid, is probably the 2 most compelling pieces of your profile as a buyer that puts you top 10%, top 25%, maybe top 5%. Because these brokers are trusting, like Elliot, the regular buyer, 30 years old, fresh out of business school, he's pain in the ass jerk, right? Then I'm going to go put down 5% and get 95% from the bank. So is Elliot buying the business or the bank? To the bank's buying the business. So then I'm talking to Elliot about his decision to put down the 5%, but I cannot talk to the bank about their decision to put down 95%. And then Elliot, because he's too overly analytical, wants to ask 78 questions before he talks to my client, then another 78 questions before he submits the letter of intent. Oz just said, I want to move efficiently towards the letter of intent, but then also was smart enough to say, or kill this one and look at your next best one. What you're telling the broker is, whatever you got in your portfolio, man, I'm looking at it until none of it fits me. So there may be 3 or 4 chances for us to work together. And the broker knows that he's my portfolio of maybes, Oz being the maybes as on the buyer side, his deals being the maybes on the deal side. He gets paid when 2 of those match. If I think so Oz is great, he can fund stuff himself, I can call him on a Tuesday, ask him if he likes it. If he says yes, he's speaking for his own money. That's a way better situation than the typical buyer.
And on Biz Buy Sell, there's a to just go for seller financing, right?
Yep.
Which means that my capital goes a little further.
Sure.
I was meaning to ask you, Elliot, should I assume all deals could consider a seller financing, or if they put it on Biz Buy Sell as seller financing option, they're not even look at it? I'm wasting my time.
You should always assume that seller financing is a part of the transaction, just that some have decided to note it up front and they may be willing to do more seller financing. But very few deals, and I would argue even fewer deals that you should be looking at, won't do seller financing. Yeah, it would have to be like Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo in one at 22 with a little bit of Mbappe to seller financing.
You know your soccer.
That's right.
What do you think of this for my first one, to think about the acquisition of the business with the property? Is that overcomplicated for my first deal? Is that going to add? Do you think it's a good strategy?
I think you should be indifferent to real estate.
Okay.
The one reason why but you're okay. Sorry, I went straight to the SBA loan answer. I would be slightly more interested in a deal where either the seller was indifferent to whether I purchased the real estate or there wasn't any involved. Just because I think what you're looking to do is maximize your honeypot of money.
Exactly.
And real estate, even if it's, however, one way to think about it is, and you need to talk to some lenders about this. In your case, it would be different if you bought a business and then financed the real estate. So let's say you bought a business for $1 million and then put $100,000 down on another $1 million of real estate. You'd be at 1.1 million of cash out of your pocket for sort of 2 million worth of asset value, of which you'd have, $900,000 of debt, which might not be a terrible situation. And plenty of like sale leaseback companies, even some that are going down market. Are you familiar with the sale leaseback?
No, that sounds interesting.
Overly complicated, but essentially you can negotiate with these companies and say, hey, you can either negotiate heavily on, I want to sell this real estate to you for this price, and they're going to tell you what the lease terms you have to enter into, or you can say, here's the lease terms that I need, and they're going to tell you the price that they'll buy the real estate from. But what that means is that you can tell the seller, hey, I'll buy the real estate, and then during due diligence, you can sell it to the sale leaseback company and either get your preferred lease terms at their purchase price or your purchase price at their lease term. Since both sides of that are a contract, you really can, you for selling the property for $2 million, and they could get their money back on a 3 to 5 year lease. That's contractual.
You did make mention of the fact that you've got long-term relationships with financial institutions, finance brokers. Will you be sharing some preferred people you can recommend?
Sure.
Although I won't be needing a loan per se for the first one, a leaseback would be interesting, but just having this would be great.
Now, some of these loan brokers will do some SBA stuff. So kind of like you have been with me, just make sure that you're pretty upfront with, hey, I plan on using my own money.
Okay.
They all have lending institutions that lend on both sides, but sometimes you need to I'm different.
Okay. With the money that I shared, and no one in Biz Buy Sell is talking about EBITDA. It's like, and I don't believe this cash flow number. I don't know how much EBITDA I should be targeting based on like the cash I can put on the table, Elliot. That's what I'm struggling with a little bit as well. I'll probably find out through the Sims, but maybe I'm going way too small, crazy small. I don't know.
So if you were willing to invest the full 1.5 million, and this is ignoring transaction fee.
Of course.
I would say 1/4 of that is the EBITDA, but really seller's discretionary earnings. So the number that is being posted on Biz Buy Sell, the number that's being used is seller's discretionary earnings. I agree that EBITDA is a better metric, but that doesn't matter in a competitive market for deals. So you're looking at SDE around So 1.5, 750, like 375, 400. Now you're gonna find a lot of deals where that multiple should be 3, and then I'm looking closer to 500. So somewhere kind of 375 to 500 in terms of SDE is where I would zone in to maximize to if I was saying, hey, I'm going to put the full 1.5 to this endeavor. Now you might also say that, so on the lower end of that, 375 is going to be a founder-led business. Like if the founder's taking home 150 out of that 375, you're at 225 of like pre-tax, pre-depreciation, pre-interest earnings, if you will. That's what's going to need some TLC to kind of get it to more of a steady state. The reason I say that is if you're going to deal with 375K in SDE, I would probably say 250 to 500 in SDE. I wouldn't go too much lower than 250 because I think brokers are trying to make deals that are 175K at SDE look like 225, knowing people have that as a cutoff. So I think that keeps you out of some BS that's really not
good,
all kind of helpful for you.
I found some mad industries.
Okay.
There's but the ones I'm interested in is landscaping. There's some HVAC. I know you've spoken on YouTube about HVACs. There's one really interesting masonry company about 2 hours out of Boston, listed at 1.7, but the seller said I can do
Oh, wow.
for the right buyer. And they do a lot of commercial contracts. So like this will be the first place I would like to go to once I get my domain, because I want to be taken seriously by the broker. I'll get my domain email set up. It'll take 2 minutes, but
Sure.
that's the first sim I want. And I'll do that this afternoon. I don't know.
like
How do you feel about, are there particularly hot sectors, Elliot? Like, is landscaping somewhere I should like stay away from? There's a floor cleaning company as well. There's some mad sectors out there.
Here's how I think about it at the beginning.
Okay.
I tell my buddy this the same thing. At first, you need to keep your aperture wide. So I'd say, I'm not going to say a number, but probably those plus a few more. And you may even look at whatever. What I've learned is that in these nebulous situations, which industries are the best, or what deals the best out of the landscaping ones.
Yeah.
There was no engineering math that even my crazy structured brain could do. There's no chart. I did consulting. There was nothing that I could put together to give me confidence if the end goal was betting years of my life and hundreds of thousands of my money, until I just felt it. And the only way I could feel it was the fourth or fifth time you look at a deal in all of those industries, you're going to be like, man, these masonry owners, for instance, are wacky characters, man. The people who work in these companies are weird. Even if this thing was 10 minutes down the road, I don't know if I'd want it, which is something that would never show up in a spreadsheet. But now that you kind of feel it viscerally in your body, you can be like, all right, let's de-emphasize masonry and go more with landscaping. And what will happen is you'll look at a landscaping deal and you'll get to a heavy LOI negotiation. The seller will sign your LOI. Maybe you get some data that's wonky as soon as you open up the data room and you kind of kill the LOI. But because you may have gone further with that landscaping deal than any other deal, you'd be like, I want some more landscaping deals. So all of a sudden, out of those 5 industries, you may prioritize landscaping for no other reason than you went further down the line with landscaping than any others. And then
Exactly.
Although it feels inefficient because it feels a little, it's actually the most efficient way, where I think every morning what you're waking up and doing is more. That's what I need to be able to tell people. This process requires you to say, my 3 hours I'm going to put in, my 5 hours I'm going to put in. I need to do more, but efficient, structured more. What do I mean by that is the reason that my street CRM was set up the way it was is a deal I was negotiating a letter of intent on was going to get my attention before one that I was still looking at the sim, before one that I'm just looking at the posting on Biz Buy Sell, before one that I'm doing some proprietary outreach in that arena, right? What that means is each day I'm like, how can I move my furthest deal one step further? And then hopefully after I get into the swing of things, most of the stuff that I'm touching on any given day is I already have the sim and I'm doing something that can get me to an LOI within a week or two. On the bad deal sourcing days, or on the days where maybe I spent 2 or 3 months in diligence and my pipeline might be a bit dry, those were the days when I had to spend most of my time back in Biz Buy Sell. But I'm trying to set this up so each day I can do more, which means instead of me spending an hour taking a walk on whether it should be landscaping, masonry, or HVAC, I'm just saying 250 to 500-600 in SDE on Biz Buy Sell, clicking the 30 deals that are within the New England arena, doing that on 4 or 5 other sites, and trusting that in a week or two, my body will tell me what the best industries are, what the best deals are. So I don't have to worry about that today. And a lot of this process that makes it difficult, I think, for structured thinkers is that a lot of us made our bones and made a lot of money in places where if you couldn't definitively answer a question, you didn't move forward.
Yes.
Unless you had budget for an analysis project, which you probably had to put together a proposal, pitch for, get resources.
Exactly
right. Whereas
you need a certain degree of confidence in order to move forward. And
yes, absent that confidence, you stop or move back.
Exactly right.
Balls to the wall every single day.
Shit, this is a mindset shift, Elliot.
Yeah, but it's not with one time of band. I'm not saying go blow your 1.5 million on the first deal that says they love you.
Right.
What I'm saying is success looks like you go through deal sourcing, LOI, due diligence, purchase agreement. Are you good with it? Are your partner good with it? Drive that joker a couple times. Is that 90-minute commute still going to really work in your successful week? Yes, no. Okay, after all this data in probably 4 months, now do I want to put my 1.5 million up? So by the time you actually have to make the real decision, which is the money one, you have 6 months of data. But a lot like dating, if you want to ask the person, do they want kids? How do they feel about God? Which God? How many partners have, you haven't earned the trust to get honest answers with those things at the beginning. So the reason you're going fast, it's kind of like tech with like super scale. It's like there's so many uncertain pieces here and so much volatility. All I know is this thing is only going to be exciting to VC if I can get a lot of customers quickly. So I need to be managing my daily budget of time every day to try to get a lot of customers quickly. And then when I look back on 3 months, 6 months, 9 months of effort, I can sort of tell where I was efficient, where I was inefficient, and switch. But if I'm trying to make those calls every day, it'll slow me down. What you're trying to do here is have 3 to 5 deals that are active at the LOI stage at any given time. So that like when we're having conversations like this, we're talking about how to get seller 1, 2, and 3 to sign your letter of intent, which is a way better conversation than how to get broker 1, 2, and 3 to send you a SIM, which is a way better conversation than how to get deal listing 1, 2, and 3 to fit within some rubric sitting off somewhere. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In my mind, diligence tells you what the business really is with a full enough data set to feel comfortable. So for me, I don't really trust any of the data before the letter of intent. It's hard to say that in a public forum because you're calling liar 100%. You're calling a broker 100% liar. No, I'm not. I'm saying I don't have time to figure out what 40% of this 30-page thing I should believe and what 60% I shouldn't. And if your seller's crazy or your process sucks, it doesn't matter anyway. So let me see if your seller will sign this letter of intent. And then if they will, that's when I get my data set is big enough to actually validate some of the stuff that was in the SIM. So now I can get the variability down to like 10 or 20%. And that's when I can start making decisions.
I think you were pretty kind to brokers. Oh, I've seen it a lot worse. I think it was helpful to get into their mind, understand what motivates them. I was kind of a little bit in the dark. I didn't know what game we're playing, right?
Yeah, they're playing the used car salesman game, the auctioneer game. Here's what's funny, which is not all that different from the private equity professionals game. So I'm not just saying low-level employee. I'm saying person that does not care about anything but their ultimate outcome. So all the private equity professionals have big websites where they're smiling. Look at me with my kids. Look at my wonderful wife. Hey, here's me relaxing. You're a capitalist animal. Come on, man. You don't smile. So why are you lying so hard on the internet?
Yeah.
You're trying to hide. Yes. What does a broker do? I'm trying to sell as much shit as I can. And I don't have any recourse on me. So yes, I prefer to tell the truth than not. But I'm also to obfuscate whether I would have known. So yeah, they're trying to sell, man. So it's like, thank you for finding the seller, putting together materials, coaching the seller on what they need to know to feel comfortable with all the questions I'm going to ask them in this weird process. Thank you for signing up to manage the in-between between us. But 90% of your positive function happened in those things that either happened before I showed up or are going to happen no matter who I am. So a lot of the value in a business broker has already been delivered by the time they deliver a seller that's prepared with a SIM and a so it's like, until they start working for you about 45 to 60 days into the process. And then it's like, hey, baby, come on.
The power dynamic shifts real quick, right? Yeah.
It does. And a lot of people don't understand that, so they don't leverage it. And a lot of used cars growing up, because that, I was trying to get a little bit nicer car every couple of years because they were all crappy. And At some point, you had to be willing to tell the guy, "Hey, look, I got $700. Am I taking this thing off the lot, or are you not getting a commission today?" I don't want to hear all that. I got 700. I can't go manufacture anymore today. Are we doing a deal where you get your commission or not? And when you get to that point with folks, all of a sudden that $950 asking price in that sim with all these great things they said about the business that would have influenced you to pay that $950 doesn't matter if the dude's, he needs money to pay rent and this is the last day that he can earn a commission on his check. And he's like, I'm taking the 700 today.
This has been great, Elliot. How often do we do this?
So
what's your plan?
I think that we should do this weekly, at least for the first month, and then use that as a gauge to figure out what we should do next. I think that part of what I did with like the emergency meetings was that at any given time, you can get a hot one on the line, and I work on deal time. So, and we can both work asynchronously, so we can sort of prioritize stuff. But I think weekly would make sense. I don't know. This is Tuesday at 11:30. I think if that's perfect for me. I think that works for me. So what I'll do is I'll send out meeting invites going through, hold on, today is the 10th of September through the 8th of October for 11:30 at, for an hour at 11:30. And then what we'll do is either at the end of that or earlier, as we get to know what each other needs and sort of, you gave me some good parameters on how you're thinking about this, but I bet after another hour-long call, I'll better be able to think about where the gaps may be between where you want to get to and where you are. Then we can better think about how to streamline this. And then one of the benefits you get for being an early adopter is you can tell me, hey, Elliot, what I need is X, Y, and Z. And then until there's 3 or 4 other people in the class plus one-on-one time, I'm optimizing around you, man.
This is good. This is good.
That's real stuff, right? So I'm going to send you an email with our shared Google folder. I've taken notes on a Google Doc inside of there. We can keep our stuff, launch new documents, put folders based on deals in there for now. I'm going to send you a list of 2 or 3 loan brokers and 2 or 3 lenders that I like. And then I'll send you the invite for the next 4 or 5 weeks for us to meet.
Yes, please.
And then that doesn't mean we don't speak again until next Tuesday. Since we're asynchronous guys, hey, email, whatever. The more structured you are, but the more structured you are, the more oriented around questions you are, the better I'll be able to answer. If you're still trying to figure out how to put it into structure, the Loom video helps me a lot. And so I want to be here for you. My goal is to help you close something. So if you need input, I would way rather put a half hour of my time into your process to save you 3 days than for you to mull through 3 days when I could have saved that for, with a half hour.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, that makes sense. And there are some spreadsheets like your vectors, which have turned into 12 vectors.
Sure.
I'd love to see what those additional 3, will they be shared in the Google Drive?
Yes. So let me go through and grab some of the documents. Let me put that in my email notes. Share the core documents from the class.
I went through the video. I just want to get it, customized with what you were saying, and then I can rewatch the video.
I love it because I'm still a Kajabi newbie. So I need to figure out how to put those things into the arena in a way that's not like random looking. So I'm glad that you asked, because what I was figuring is if somebody in the class wanted it, they'd ask. So this is like the perfect kind of scenario.
Kajabi is the right platform for something like this. I'm a big fan of the company itself, but it's great. So it's a good. If you're going to use. Okay, cool. Elliot, real pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
I've watched your content for a while, and I've been dithering in the process of me relocating. So I'm a month into my Boston life.
Sure.
I'm going to be kind of back and forth for the next couple of months traveling, but I really want to be focused here, and I can just make the time zone differences work, right?
Sure. I know you understand this. You want to get out of your consulting advisory life. So there's some pain there. Not that it's not good money, We know it's good money. Not that you probably hate it. It's not that. It's just what I like about those situations is like you got the pain of staying with what you're doing currently, or the pain of getting better at this. Now you're gonna suck
Exactly.
at this first. So the price you have to pay is sucking. Now you've given yourself a $10,000 investment to suck less. So we're gonna accelerate your sucking portion of this. But you're at the same kind of professional level I am, where like there's no like zero risk or no pain options for us anymore. We got to structure our time and be prioritized. So I fully expect you to carve the time aside. You should fully expect me to say, hey, man, you said these were your goals. We're working towards them. If the time has been cut in half, which is cool, that means your efficiency has to go to double. So maybe we tweak your email or your process, or maybe take your LOI only 3 inputs. And just say, dude, I'm gonna have a spreadsheet of 3 inputs. I'm gonna pass them through 10 LOIs in a 5-minute period. I'm gonna send them. We can tweak those dials to get you moving.
Perfect.
All right, sir.
Thanks, Elliot.
Absolutely.
Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Hey, one final question.
Tell me.
Out of the content that you consumed, were there any things that pushed you over the line to purchase the class?
Your last video, there was a call to action.
Yeah.
And you stated clearly there was a just a $3,000.
Yep.
And just do it. I think it was your strongest call to action, if I'm not mistaken, because I've seen your stuff for a while. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I told my team I bet that was what it was, but thank you for confirming that.
Yeah, it was. I went from the video straight on the page to purchase, right? Awesome. I think the fact that it's a limited space, I think up to 5, you said, or 4, I can't remember. I think that was as well. It gave me the sense that I would be an early adopter and get that FaceTime with you, you know.
Absolutely, sir.
You know, there's a lot of great marketeers out there selling this same message. There's a lot of charlatans, Elliot. You're the real deal, right? I think that's very clear just in general with your content, the real deal.
Thank you. I work very hard on that, and it's good to hear, man.
Cool. I'm looking forward to working with you, Elliot.
Looking forward to it. Yep. I'll talk to you next week.